You're listening to Newshour from the BBC. I'm Julian Marshall. The United Nations this week began delivering aid to those Haitians caught up in the upsurge in violence between rival gangs in the capital Port-au-Prince. The turf war between the gangs in the district of Cité Soleil has left hundreds dead, injured or missing this month, according to the UN, with houses burnt to the ground and unaccompanied children fleeing the district. According to the Human Rights Office, these clashes have also resulted in numerous cases of rape. It's believed that 250,000 people remain trapped in the area, with markets, schools and health centres closed. In total, there are 3 humanitarian agencies now delivering water and food to affected areas, but this only partially covers the current need. The violence has also spilled out into the centre of Port-au-Prince, with the Catholic cathedral set on fire and the main avenues and markets shut down as gunfire reverberated through the city. The police have been involved in fierce gun battles with gang members. Dave Fils-Aimé was born in Haiti and set up a charity which uses basketball to try to connect with Haitian children and teenagers. It operates in Cité Soleil and Martissant, both of which have been affected by the violence.
This current situation that we're living in actually started getting worse back in June of last year, when all of a sudden gangs in Martissant started fighting against each other, and things have just been extremely tough, particularly in that part of Port-au-Prince ever since. We're not exactly sure who's supplying the gangs with weapons, because Haiti has a ban on weapons, on the import of weapons, so we're not sure where they're getting them from and why they're fighting. But on a daily basis, Haitians are being victims of this gang violence.
The gangs, I understood, though, were fighting for control of territory in both Cité Soleil and Martissant.
It is a turf war on the superficial level, but we think that there are greater forces at play here that most Haitians aren't sure who's behind it all. This has been happening in Haiti for over the past 2 decades or so, right? But it's never reached this level where you have gangs that have military-grade weapons that cost tens of thousands of dollars, So where are they getting these weapons from? It's clear that they have extremely powerful and well-positioned folks who are supplying them with these weapons.
And ordinary people are being caught up in this violence, people such as yourself and your wife, who were stopped at gunpoint, I understand.
In the summer of 2020, my wife and I decided to visit a school in the nearby Cité neighborhood to determine if it would be a good place for us to relocate the program. And on our way to that school, we were stopped in Cité Soleil by a gang. And I was entering the street when our car was circled by about 4 or 5 gang members with heavily armed. And my first reflex was to back the car away from them. But then they pointed their guns aggressively towards us. And so at that point, I realized that the only solution would be for me to stop the car, lower my window, and try to talk to them, which is what I did. And I was wearing a shirt of my organization, so I pointed out the logo, showing the basketball and telling them I'm a basketball coach working with youth in Cité Soleil. And they were a bit suspicious. They thought that maybe I was coming in to supply a rival gang with weapons. And so they asked my wife and I to step out of the car. And they told us that if we were lying to them, things aren't going to go well for us. And I told them I never carry any weapons. They can go ahead and check the vehicle. And they did. And when they found no weapons, they told us to get in the car and they allowed us to leave. But for me, to be in this situation, we're extremely lucky because not many people who encounter gang members, heavily armed gang members in Haiti, are able to survive and tell the tale.
So what happens to them? You say that the killing of ordinary people by the gangs is quite frequent?
It is. And the sad thing about it is innocents are are usually victims of stray bullets. Just in the past 2 days, you've had folks who've been victims of stray bullets. 2 days ago, there was a cameraman from one of Haiti's leading TV stations whose 6-year-old daughter was struck by a stray bullet. Luckily, she survived. But yesterday, I heard of a pregnant woman who was struck by a bullet, and sadly, she passed away. And so this is happening on basically on a daily basis. When you're living in a situation where the government is so weak, you've had a presidential assassination a year ago, and there still haven't been any elections to elect a new president, and the prime minister is serving pretty much as the de facto president at the same time. It's a very chaotic situation, and no one trusts the state, really. And so when you have this vacuum, then it allows gang members to become increasingly powerful and to pretty much displace the government in many of these communities.
That was Dave Fils-Aimé, who was born in Haiti, educated in America, then set up a charity which uses basketball to try to connect with Haitian children and teenagers.